Hello and welcome to Andy's World and part 2 of the £5 kayak restoration video. Today I'm going to start doing some basic fiberglass repairs to start making this hull a bit more secure and repairing the holes. Now since the last video all I've really done is sanded the inside with some 120 grit sandpapers. I went with the 80 on the top. I don't really want to reduce the thickness of the fiberglass anymore, but I basically just gave it a good clean, and in the area where the hole was underneath, it was basically held together by this wire mesh and resin, and it just crumbled away. And the more I cleaned it, the more frayed fiberglass I had on the edges, which is no good because we want something solid to adhere to. So as I cleaned it back, it actually made a bigger hole. Now this hole is actually the worst part to repair. It's the biggest job, which is quite convenient because it's also the easiest to film. But instead of showing you every single repair as I work my way along the kayak, I'm going to show you how to do this one, because it is exactly the same method for all the holes along the edges you may encounter in the seams. Now what I'm going to use for this repair is some of this chopped strand fiberglass matting. Now it's always best to wear gloves with this because it gets under your skin and it itches like mad, and the best way I've found to use this is to tear off suitably sized squares basically to cover the hole. And it's best to tear it than it is to use a pair of scissors and cut it, because it leaves these frayed edges, and as you lay it down in layers, these fibres intermingle and form a stronger bond. Now the next thing to do is to give the area we're going to be working on a bit of a wipe down with some acetone. Now acetone is quite expensive and hard to find, but nail polish remover is basically the same stuff. A bit of blue roll and too much, it's gone everywhere. Just give the area wipe down. This just removes any dust or grease that might prevent the resin from sticking to the fiberglass. Also remember to do both sides. Give it to dry off with a dry piece. It should just evaporate off. So now I need to mix up some resin, and the resin I'm using is this polyester marine grade resin, which comes with its own catalyst. Now you have to mix this stuff at a ratio to this, and I'm going to initially use about 150 ml, and according to this I'll need about 6 ml of hardener. So basically £150 of that. Quite a lot. Of this. Make sure it's properly mixed together. It's a good stir. Now this cures pretty quick, so you've not really got long with it. Now when you're using this stuff, it's best to wear a proper respirator. This stuff gives off a lot of fumes, especially if you're in enclosed space like I am at the moment. take my fiberglass mat in, and I'm just going to, for this first piece, just cover it in a little bit of resin and then place it over the hole. Now the trick now is to douse it, literally saturate it in resin. And then just keep going, building up layers to surround the hole. I recommend with this that you just buy some cheap paintbrushes, nothing fancy. It doesn't matter if the hairs come off, because you'll only use them once. When you've got a couple on, make sure you get the other side as well with you. Now bear in mind you're going to sand this, so you don't want to get too much on. There we have it. That'll take about 15-20 minutes to set. Job's good. So now I'm going to pay attention to these seams. As you can see here, we're clean back, it made another hole. So I'm just going to use the same method along the seams as well. Now on the outside of this, where you've got the gel coat missing, and we're just going to use the same method and build up the fiberglass on the outside as well. Now the trick is just use small bits. Just try to lay it in. And just dab your resin off, put it in place. Right, so that's the seam sealed up and the holes repaired. So I'm going to draw his attention now to strengthen the hull, and to do that we're going to use some of this. It's woven fiberglass matting, and it's a lot heavier. It's meant for repairing boats and things like that, and it's the structural type of fiberglass rather than just the patching up sort, and this is going to add a lot of rigidity to it. So the first thing to do is measure a piece out. So I've cut my piece of mat, and the idea is to lay this along the floor inside the kayak. Now we use this special roller, and it's got it's a toothed aluminium head on it, and what it's for is forcing out the air from underneath the mat that we've just applied. And there we have it. What that should have done now is also strengthen the hull, plugged up any holes that I haven't seen, but it also stops the gel coat surface, the cracks in it, stretching anymore. So we've also stabilised that. So that's it for this episode, and thank you again for watching. Please join me in part 3, where we're going to have a look at installing the deck hatch, repairing the seat, and perhaps even a water test.